Karen, thank you so much. I want to welcome everybody to this important session on building a cybersecurity plan for the new year. And hopefully we're going to do this in plain English. This is an important topic for many reasons. And when I do my ethics talk, I oftentimes refer to the ethical rules and Model Rule 1.6 in particular. That's something that we're not going to do and dive into today. We know that there's an ethical obligation for lawyers to protect client data, the confidentiality of that data, and obviously the safety of that data as well. So it goes without saying that we're trying to avoid the compromising of that data. We're not going to dive into the rules behind it. We'll save that for another day and another topic. If that's something that's important to you, we can add that in. However, law firms are targets, and so I think it's really important. And I'm very struck by a presentation that was given a couple years ago at ABA Tech Show. We put together a session on cybersecurity, and we had law enforcement there. In particular, we had the FBI, and the FBI got up on stage and they said, you know, if you are the subject of a victim of a ransomware attack, there's not much we can do. And oftentimes is the case, we advise an organization to pay the ransom or to restore a backup, right, of your data before it was encrypted by the cyber criminals. And so there's very little they can do. They just don't have the resources. Local law enforcement doesn't either. And you know, that really kicked off I'll say paranoia, worry, sleepless nights. And within our own organization, we have implemented the cybersecurity plan. I want to share with you what that experience was and the steps that we took to put together our cybersecurity plan. And it's an ongoing plan. It's never ending, and that's a really important point. You start, and I think it's really important to realize that you're not going to be in compliance with your plan initially, and that's okay. But you are taking steps to better the situation and ultimately get in compliance. So we are victims. We hear stories all the time about in this case, a firm of about 100 lawyers was a victim of a ransomware attack, and they decided to restore a backup instead of paying the $80,000 ransom. So they lost about a half a day to a day of work, but they restored their backup. So they chose to restore backup. We get constantly requests from our own clients now. Now, I'm not talking about us, our clients, your clients. You are constantly being asked to more and more migrate to the cloud because of the security features found in cloud-based solutions that we cannot achieve within our own IT infrastructure. Other motivators. I do a lot of technology assessments, and this one in particular, I see much more frequent than we should. People don't know how to redact their documents properly, right? And so that's it's a little off topic than the ransomware hacking situations that we're thinking about, but it all fits in again to that category of protecting client information. We're getting cybersecurity questionnaires constantly from our clients. So in order for us to give you business, firm, you need to fill out this questionnaire. We need to know that you are protecting our data, right? So we're getting these horrible questionnaires that we have to fill out. So all of these things are, I think, kicking us in the butt, right, to get us to where we need to be. Now, we probably should have tackled this years ago, as we have, and we constantly still do, but that's okay. If you're now just getting the kick in the butt, or maybe this webinar is a kick in the butt, we need to take action to protect our data. Our data, our clients' data, it is no longer 1990 It is no longer the year 2000. The days of just storing documents and saving them anywhere we want, and not worrying about security, those days are over. And I often say this to my own team: with security comes inconvenience. And so as you encounter some of these, we talk about some of these things here today, you'll probably be thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do X, Y, and Z. Yes. Kind of the answer to that, not beating around the bush, the answer is yes. And that's a message that you need to reiterate with your own team, with the members of your own firm. Yes, it is going to take you longer to save documents in a certain way or share them in a certain way, but we have to do that. We cannot be saving documents onto flash drives and sending them in the mail or dropping them off, right? We need to collaborate securely. We need to share. We need to save documents in a much more secure fashion. So it is going to be inconvenient, and there are going to be more steps. So your process. What should you do? So let's dive into that. Step one, and we're gonna go into these in more detail, but this is kind of overall. Step one, you're gonna identify the issues. Okay, so more on that in a second, but it's issue identification. It involves a team of people. We'll jump into that in a second, but you're gonna identify the issues. Step two, overall, again, from a 30,000-foot view, you're gonna draft a policy. You need a policy in place that sets forth what the rules are. What are the rules of engagement, and make sure that everybody is on that page. We'll talk about, again, how to draft that policy and how to roll that out. Step three, pilot test the technology. So as part of the policy, you're going to have, obviously, solutions that you may deploy. For instance, as an example, you may deploy two-factor authentication or a password manager. So you want to pilot test that. You're going to pilot test before you bring the entire organization live. So you need a small committee of testers. More on that in a second. Step four, you do it, right? So after you test, you measure 3 times and you cut once. We're going to actually do it. So we're gonna roll it out, go live, probably in phases, and then step 5. Enforcement and continuity. And that's where we are currently. We are focused now on, we have the policy in place. We have most of the technology in place. We may replace a few things and as new technology becomes available. But we are now enforcing. We are trying to figure out, are we in compliance? Are people straying? It's a constant education, right? And so continuity. It's a constant reevaluation of the situation, of the policies and the technology that changes, and educating our people. All right. So identifying the issues, that was step one. How do we do that? Well, it involves brainstorming, right? Brainstorming the issues and concerns. And so what I recommend that you do in order to do this effectively is to assemble a task force. Create a cybersecurity task force within your organization. And that's going to be a small committee of your staff. You want a good cross-section of your organization's people. So you want lawyers. You might want lawyers from different practice groups if they have different interests. Like you want a transactional attorney, you want a litigation attorney. You may not need every single type of transactional attorney. But you want a good cross-section. You want paralegals, you want legal assistants, or one representative from that group. You're going to put together a committee of people, and those people will talk to others and gather their thoughts and then bring them to the meeting, right? And convey their concerns. You also want a cybersecurity expert. Now, we are not, I'm going to be clear, Affinity is not, we are not cybersecurity experts. We know a lot about it because we have to. We are often part of issue identification, and we work with cybersecurity experts. But you assemble your small committee and put together, brainstorm your list of concerns. For instance, everything, and just brainstorm it in no particular order. That's what brainstorming is. And you identify, well, like, I'm really concerned that Joe is carrying around his laptop and there's no encryption. And what if it's lost and he leaves it out on the table at the cafe a lot? Or we have all these mobile devices, and it seems like there's an awful lot of information on those that people could get if it was stolen. And it seems like some folks don't have their passcodes on, and their phones aren't encrypted. Everything, every little possibility like that. I'm concerned that we have documents in so many different locations. So you brainstorm your list. Then you bring your cybersecurity expert in. And your cybersecurity, you're going to share that information with them, and then you're going to further that brainstorming with that cybersecurity expert. They probably have a process and a checklist involved in their own issue identification. But you want to get your arms around what you believe, what you interpret your concerns are and your goals, right? And then you're going to bring in and fold in a cybersecurity expert. We aren't cybersecurity experts, and here's a list of some cybersecurity experts that we often work with that are fantastic. So I do recommend that you, if you don't have one, it might be your own IT people currently, right? And that's okay. But if you don't have one, or you want to bring in an outside source, you absolutely can. These are groups of people that will do generally two big types of projects: vulnerability assessments and penetration testing. And there's some overlap in what those functions do. Generally speaking, vulnerability assessments really work on process, right? And it's a very wide focus. It's about what people are doing or not doing, policies, right? It's not intrusive. It's a very wide focus. Interviews, brainstorming, right? And then penetration testing is focusing more on the technology and, are ports secure on your network, those type of things, right? So in any type of cybersecurity assessment, it's important actually to look at both things. You can't just look at one and not the other. So these are things, quite frankly, I think at some point, in order to get cybersecurity insurance, we are going to need to engage in some type of cybersecurity assessment from a professional, right, that does this work, like organizations like this, and on some regular basis, whether it's every year, every other year. It's a little unclear right now. To me, I think having that type of expert come in every other year, right, it sounds to me to be reasonable. That seems to be a very good approach. And obviously, the second year that you do it, there's a lot less work because you did all the work, the year before. So, but you're going to fold in that brainstorming. You're going to fold in that cybersecurity expert, and you are going to look at issues like this. These are the types of things that come up that I want you to think about now, right? Where is your data? Okay, so that's one big question that should be on your list. And by the way, this doesn't have to wait for a task force. You could do this. You could do some of this right now, right? Get a piece of paper out and start brainstorming this just yourself, and meet with your partners or other leaders within your organization. Say, hey, look, this is the problem, and these are the problems that I think exist, and this is the route that I think we need to go. All right, so where's your data, right? And so when we polled our own people, we found we had people saving things in Dropbox, right, in OneDrive. It might be on backup, multiple different backup systems. These are, and actually we don't use something like, we don't use Clio, but you might find if you use Clio, you have documents and data in Clio. You have information on mobile devices, on laptops, and Google Drive. You might be surprised when you poll people. Now, what I like to do, I like the door-to-door approach, and so I like to go sit down and talk with somebody and start asking open-ended questions, and it's amazing what is revealed from that. A very effective way to do this also as well is like a survey monkey. And there's some utilities that you can install, free utilities that you can install on everybody's machine that will give a complete picture, snapshot of every program that's on the machine. And then you can look at those programs and say, oh my gosh, we have people using Google Drive, what? Right? And so it's very important that you realize you identify all the programs and all the locations, the physical folder locations, as well as services where documents and data may reside. You will find that you have documents and data on mobile devices with client data. No question about it. Think about your own situation and all the information that you receive on your mobile device. We have situations where clients are requiring a policy and technology. Okay, and so that is a concern. Again, we're brainstorming. These are the issues that come up when we brainstorm. Like, oh my gosh, I got 3 security questionnaires just last week from clients, and if we don't get on the ball and do something, we're not going to get their business next year. Passwords, right? Passwords. Where are people saving their passwords? Are they saving them on pieces of paper and Excel spreadsheets and word lists and different password managers? That's a problem. Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. Departing employees. We have people who leave who may know passwords, right? And so when they leave, then we need to change the passwords that they had access to, right? So do you have a policy in place to manage that situation? Do you have a policy in place to have a departing employee sign off on the fact that they're not taking client information? Do you inspect their computer, right, and make sure that they aren't copying things to flash drives and so forth, right? So are you dealing with departing employees? Unmanaged computers. Do you have devices out there, and they're usually mobile devices, that people buy on their own? So the BYOD, bring your own device situation, where documents and data may be stored on those. Are people surfing unprotected? We get this a lot. This comes up a lot in brainstorming sessions, where we have lawyers go out to Starbucks and connected to public Wi-Fi, and they're doing work over an unencrypted line, right? And so and those are easily hackable. And so we might want to deploy some type of VPN solution so people can connect to public Wi-Fi safely and transact business. People are sending sensitive documents via email that's unencrypted, right? So what do we do about that? That's a big one, and we see more and more of that, where our clients are demanding that we send emails that are encrypted back and forth. Proper wiping and disposal of computers, right? People are what are we doing with all our old computers? Do they go into the graveyard? Are those being inventoried and monitored and locked up? Are they being wiped, right? Cybersecurity insurance. I saw a questionnaire just the other day that asked about, do we have cybersecurity insurance in a certain dollar amount, right? So that might be important as well. Sharing documents and data with clients securely. Using Dropbox, or what are all the different solutions that you're using, right? And so that's a big deal. And so there may be maybe there's 5 different solutions that people are using. And so we generally want to centralize that so it could be administered and monitored and governed, right? Under that one solution, as opposed to 5 separate solutions. So you create a much more complex environment when you have some people using Google Drive, some people using OneDrive, some people using Dropbox, where the firm may really benefit from using a single solution like Citrix ShareFile or NetDocuments, and cut that down from 5 or 6 different solutions down to 1 or 2 that could be managed much more easily. So holy moly, where do we start? That's a lot. Well, we don't start with perfection. If, perfection is going to cripple you. I think it's really important for you to realize that you're going to chip away at this one thing at a time, unless you have endless resources where you can throw tons of money at this and get all of it conquered at once. Most people are going to conquer this in phases, and don't get crippled on perfection. Okay, the test is reasonableness. Are you taking reasonable steps? And so we want to aim for perfection. We always do, but don't let it cripple you. So start with your policy. So this is the spinal cord to your cybersecurity venture here, and this is what you're going to work with your cybersecurity expert. They may even have some sample policies for you to work with, but here's how we did it. I'm going to pop over to Excel, and as an issue came up, we gave it a category, okay, and in this case, confidentiality and security of data. And then, as an example here, it is never acceptable to allow a coworker to log in to an Affinity Consulting Group system using your username and password. Okay, so we don't allow the sharing of login credentials. That's a big no-no, right? So as you encounter these issues in your brainstorming, you want to record a policy or find some policy language if something exists or you have some samples where you write your policy to address that particular issue. I'll just give you one more. Password security. Okay, so passwords must never be inserted into email messages or forms of electronic communication without the use of encryption. So if a password is going to be shared with somebody electronically, it needs to be in an encrypted email, or somebody needs to pick up the phone and communicate it over the phone, right? So you are going to capture all of those issues, and then obviously you're going to polish the policies around it and the language around it. And then from here, what we did was something very nice. We can track our previous language, and then from this we can generate a finished product, which is this. Okay, so we just have a macro that pulls out those provisions and generates a Word document, and then we print it. So when we make changes to our policy, we go into the spreadsheet here, okay, and then we regenerate the policy and then publish it. And this is a copy of our published policy, and where we break it out into different sections. And you can see here, this is the very first one that we just talked about, not allowing the sharing of login credentials. Okay, so I can share with you, we'll make available with you a sample cybersecurity policy that is maybe a good starting point for you. We'll make that available along with the PowerPoint today, so you don't have to start completely from scratch. Okay, part of that policy includes technology solutions. So, for instance, with passwords, you may choose, we want a password management program. And that's going to solve a lot of the problems where people are saving things in multiple locations, right? So in your policy, okay, and you'll see out here in our spreadsheet, we even name certain programs, right? So here, all personnel must use and store passwords into Dashlane. And that happens to be the solution that we picked within our own organization. All right, so you draft your policy. As part of the policy, you identify solutions to solve those particular problems, okay? And then you pick the low-hanging fruit, okay? And as part of that, and let's dive into phase one, the low-hanging fruit. The phase one is teaching the policy and identifying some low-hanging fruit, some easy things that we can fix right away. And of course, as part of that, you have that testing period with your smaller group before you roll it out live. Okay, so in phase one, we are going to encrypt all laptops and desktop computers. And an easy way to do that is with Windows 10 that comes with BitLocker. Okay, so it's free. part of the Windows operating system, and every single computer, if it's stolen, if it's lost, will be protected, will be fully encrypted. The hard drives will be encrypted by enabling BitLocker. And we can actually push that out through group policy. And so when people log in, automatically, when a new computer is set up, those computers are actually all have BitLocker enabled, so we don't have to worry about, people can't turn it off. They have to have it enabled. Dashlane is a password manager. So as an enterprise, we invested in Dashlane and required every single employee to store every single password into Dashlane. So it's an encrypted database that saves those passwords, and they're available on your mobile devices. It's all fully encrypted. You update it in one, it updates it in the other. Office 365 for email encryption. So with the E3, the Enterprise 3 or Enterprise 5 level licensing, you can encrypt emails, outbound emails, and responding, emails by just simply typing the word encryption into the subject line or clicking a button within a ribbon. And that solves the problem of not having a method to send out emails in an encrypted manner. Okay, so that's very easy, low-hanging fruit. If you have Office 365, you could upgrade. If you don't have the right licensing model, you can upgrade to the E3 and have them turn that on, and that's very easy to deploy and then train your users. And then you may choose to migrate to the cloud, right? You might select solutions like NetDocuments or even WorldDocs Cloud or iManage Cloud, where most of, let's say 99% of your client documents are in a cloud-based solution, and you take advantage of their world-class security, right? So we would have to spend millions of dollars, right, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of your organization, in order to achieve the level of security that they have. So with laptops and encryption, right, we turn on BitLocker. You could turn on BitLocker manually by going to the Windows key, typing BitLocker, and then turning it on or off, right? Many people don't know this. It's amazing, right? In Office 360 or in Windows 10, it is part of the operating system. So turning on BitLocker. Make sure, if you do that, make sure you make a backup of your recovery key. That's really important that you do that. We store it in Dashlane or a PDF or a printout and make that available in case sometimes you run an update of Windows and it asks you for that encryption key. If you don't have Windows 10, then these are a list of solutions that you can use that you have to purchase, right? They're not free, and that, with the exception of Mac File Vault, that comes with the Mac operating system. But these are full disk encryption solutions that are alternatives if you don't have Windows 10 yet. Dashlane, RoboForm, 1Password, LastPass. These are all password managers that are available to help you manage passwords. Cloud solutions, for instance, like NetDocuments and iManage and WorldDocs, those, and so instead of having a server with all of your documents on your local servers, you can look at solutions like this, and you can see here, I just grabbed a screenshot from NetDocuments website of all the different certifications, the SOC 2 certification, HIPAA compliance, ISO 27017. These are the things that we would spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on, especially over a period of time, that we could just never achieve on our own because it's just too expensive. So instead, we entrust solutions like this to do that. One note on Dropbox. If you're using Dropbox as a firm, make sure that you aren't allowing people to use their personal versions of Dropbox or personal licenses of Dropbox, because if that person leaves, then there's no way for you to revoke access, right? So invest in Dropbox for Business, so you have controls, you're getting backups, and you can avoid that particular that particular situation. With Office 365 and email encryption, you can actually just, like I said, you could just use the word encrypted in the subject line, or you can even use the buttons that allow you to do that directly in the options ribbon there. You can see under permission encrypt, right? So it's very easy to do that. A lot of people don't know that that's available. Data backup, again, another low-hanging fruit. Just make sure that you have good backup. You validate the backup. You do test restores. And here, what we're trying to avoid is loss of data, as well as protect ourselves from ransomware attacks. So if our data is held ransom because somebody has infiltrated our system and encrypted all of our documents and we can't open them, that's what we're talking about here, then we can restore a backup from yesterday, right? We can't just do backups once a week or once a month. We need daily backups so we can restore a backup and get back up and running. Phase 2, you might want to deploy something like a VPN solution so we can connect over public Wi-Fi that's not secure, and allow your users to take advantage of public Wi-Fi, but do so securely. And then also two-factor authentication. So if somebody logs into your network or logs into, let's say, Net Documents or Clio, okay, or any other solution, then in order for them to get in, a code is sent to their mobile device, and then they validate that that is indeed them trying to log in, and then they're allowed into the system, right? So that's what two-factor authentication is, and we know today that two-factor authentication is actually a much better way to handle password security, right? We still want strong passwords, but two-factor authentication is really going to provide us with that level of protection. ExpressVPN or NordVPN, these are two good solutions for a VPN solution, and for two-factor authentication, something like Duo is fantastic. We're going to wrap up here. I know we're going over a little bit, but it is important. Phase 3 might look like managed computers, right? So we want to make sure that we force the same configuration out for everybody. Everybody is using a virus protection and ransomware protection and malware protection like Carbon Black. Carbon Black is a very good solution that uses artificial intelligence, not just a blacklist, whitelist. It looks at patterns of how things are occurring on their computer, what kind of scripts are being run, and boy, that looks suspicious based on the activity, right? Based on the script itself, not based on a whitelist, blacklist of a URL. And so it's much more sophisticated. And so you want to look at solutions like that and make sure that that you roll out all of these solutions for everybody, right? They're managed very well by your IT person, and people can't turn those things off. And then finally, phase 4, that's your annual assessment or every other year, the constant education, and then the revision. So that task force essentially becomes a permanent task force. It might not always be the same people, but the task force, the committee always exists, and it's something that it's a group of people that your people can go to with questions and concerns, and that committee meets on a regular basis, maybe every quarter, and works with the cybersecurity expert and rolls out education to your people as well, right? So your cybersecurity expert would probably implement tests, random tests, where they send emails to your users that are designed to actually trick them. And so we educate them to not click on links and things like that. And so then we can produce scores and data to show that like 90% of the individuals actually did the right thing when they were sent that email with that link that they were not supposed to click, right? So annual assessment or every other year, constant education and revision. And that concludes everything that I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to turn it back over to Karen to wrap things up. I really appreciate you attending today. Hopefully you picked up some good information and ideas about how to implement a cybersecurity plan within your organization.
Thanks, Paul. Actually, there were two questions. The first one, I know you mentioned Carbon Black, but are there other antivirus software that you would recommend for like a smaller law firm with less cost involved?
Yes, so certainly the traditional solutions that have been around for years are okay. I think they're very reasonable, but solutions like Norton Antivirus, McAfee, those solutions, they're okay. They're not as good as Carbon Black, and I think we're going to see Carbon Black made for some. We're a small organization in our office, but not super small. We have about 50 people, and it's affordable for our 50 people. And certainly you can get it for smaller organizations. But if you're a 1 or 2 user environment, then I think the important thing is that you're using something. So Norton, McAfee, and that genre that's been around a long time is certainly fine.
Great. And then the other question was with regard to PC cleanup software, do you have a recommendation for any of those?
I don't. PC cleanup's a slightly different genre. There is some relation. Sometimes when we run cleanup utilities, it identifies malware, and so. But cleanup utilities do other things like find duplicate files and decrease file space usage that you might be eating up on your computer, as well as like scrubbing through the system registry that would optimize performance of your computer, removing dead keys and things like that. We could have an offline discussion about that. That's not an area where I'm an expert, but I'd be more than happy to try to find some resources for that individual who submitted that question.
That sounds great.
So if we can get that email address of that user, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to pass that on to you. And thank you, Paul. You just always include such great tips on such an important topic. So thank you so much for spending time with us. Great job. And thanks to all of you for attending. If you were intrigued or concerned by Paul's presentation this morning and want to learn more about cybersecurity or creating your own cybersecurity plan, or if you just have some lingering questions, I encourage you to take advantage of our free 30-minute consultation. This is your chance to speak with one of our experts at Affinity and get those nagging questions answered. Just reply to my follow-up email and I'll do the rest. As always, I hope you'll join us again soon. We have some really great new sessions coming up that you won't want to miss. Just jump on to affinityconsulting.com/webinars for all the details. And please do share your feedback with us on the survey that follows. Thanks, everyone.